Superior attack!
Welcome back to Superior Tech, where we look at the numbers and the how-to of characters if you care about such. I am Respecugnize, and this is Pharah. So Pharah here has a real big thing about protecting the innocent and justice. Maybe she should have become a lawyer instead of a soldier. I don't know. So as we normally do it, we will look at primary fire, secondary fire, if such exists, left shift E. Then I will go through the how to play the character, how to play against the character. By that time, I've usually built up some ults. We do ult, and then we get out of here so you guys can go play. So with no further ado, let's start. On primary fire, we have rocket launcher. It is a linear projectile with a splash damage modifier, meaning that when you fire the rocket, it actually travels through the air. It does not hit scan, where it would just automatically hit if you move the center of the screen on the character and press your primary fire button. So it's just a linear projectile. It's going to fire out of her huge wrist cannon. I guess it's a wrist rocket. And here's the damage. A direct hit from the rocket is going to be 120 damage. The splash damage is going to be 80, and the minimum is going to be 20. And you can damage yourself if you are a recovering TF2 player, or you're a TF2 convert. Then plays a lot like soldier. And so it will do 40 damage to yourself if you hit a hard surface, and it uses the physics to knock you back. And so there's some tech to that, and we'll look at that when we go into how to play the character. So the projectile speed is 35 meters, which is relatively quick. The area of effect is 2.5 meters, and that's a radius. And so that's how you're going to know whether you're going to get that 20 right at the far edge of that circle, or if you're going to get the 80 being in between that and 120 at the epicenter if you get a dark hit. The rate of fire is 1.1 round per second. There is 6 ammo in the magazine. We can see that looking at the bottom right hand corner, and for the most part you can see it right there on that gigantic wrist rocket that is her right arm. You will have a reload time of 1 second, and it will not headshot. So if we look at it, it is just simply a rocket that fires. There you go, no headshots. And you can see we can damage multiple characters at the same time if we can get them within that radius. So secondary fire is a part of her passive. I don't know why it's considered a passive, because to me, if you have to do something, then it's an active. But let's look at that. It is called hover jets, and it's going to be part of the movement suite. You can actually activate it with either the space bar or the secondary fire. And once again, I said the word activate, and therefore it can't really be a passive now, can it? But I can't argue with Blizzard. So it is a movement speed changer and buff. It moves you to 5.5 meters per second. It has a duration of 2 seconds and a cooldown of 2 seconds. That's a lot of twos. It's going to be used with your left shift in what I'm going to call her movement suite. And so we're going to put a pin in it and come back after left shift and kind of see how those work in conjunction. So on left shift is your jump jets, not the hover jet. That's spacebar or secondary fire. Jump jet is on left shift. It is a 20-meter vertical boost. And so it is going to move you mostly in vertical, but just like with hover jet, jump jet does take into account the physics engine, and it's used in this 3-part trifecta suite that we're going to look at, that you're going to need to know to use the character. So 20 meters vertical. It has a cooldown of 10 seconds, so you can't just use it indefinitely. You have to use it in conjunction with your secondary fire or your spacebar, whatever you're going to be using for it to actually hover. And so we're going to look at the third part, which is on E. It's concussive blast. It is a linear splash projectile, meaning the same thing. It travels in a straight line. It is a projectile. It is not hit scan. So it does have some physics in it, and you have to aim it. It has no damage, but it does create knockback. The projectile speed is 50 meters per second, so it gets out there pretty quick. The area of effect is 8 meters, and that's pretty decent. The cooldown is 12 seconds because we don't want you doing it all the time, right? And it will not headshot because it doesn't do any damage, so how could it headshot? So we're going to run down to the firing range here, and we're going to kind of look at how to play the character. So Pharah is the better way to say it, is your quintessential high mobile character. You know, every one of these games has to have someone who's kind of like a flyer. And then on top of that, she's your quintessential rocket character. So I'm going to go over here and kind of look at it. So left shift is typically how you're going to start your boost, unless you've got some advanced timing, and I'm not going to spend all the time on it that we need to. We'll probably, I mean, we're moving through these characters pretty quickly. Eventually I'm going to have to do some changes to some of the characters and things like that, and then go from there. But left shift, and we'll start from down here, is going to be the big push off, and you don't have to be on the ground, but we're going to show it from here. So it's a 20-meter vertical. So let's look at it right there. Left shift. Okay. You see the arc. That's 20 meters, and she's going to move basically in an arc. So if we're moving backwards and we press it, see, she's just going to move in that way. If we're passive when we press it, which is what I did the first time, she's just going to move in a gentle arc forward because she's facing that way. Okay? So we can then at any time press alternate fire or spacebar. I prefer spacebar just because you have to kind of start using your brain to do your infinite hover. So left shift, and the important part in what I see a lot of people do on accident is they will left shift and then immediately go into those hover jets, which is a complete waste. Let her get to the apex, which is the top of her arc. So we're going to left shift, and we're up here, see? And then you just tap spacebar. And then we're looking at the cooldown. You see that fuel bar. We're getting low, and then boom, we're back up again. And so that's how you do it indefinitely. Now, if you don't do it that way, and you just start pressing your alternate fire, your spacebar in the middle of it for your hover jets, this is what's going to happen. So I'm going to left shift and go up, but I'm going to almost immediately start hitting hover jet, and watch the fuel. See, so we're on the fuel. See where we're at now? We're low, 0. See, we're going to hit the 0. We're going down. We're going down. We're going down. And while I can get out of it, see, I did it again, and now I have no fuel, and I'm just pressing the space bar. I'm kind of floating around. See, I landed that time. I couldn't hold it. So it is very important to watch the apex, or time it, or listen to it, and let her get all the way up before you start hitting that space bar. And you want to tap the space bar also, because if you hold it, then it's not going to work out very well for you. And so the same thing, I let her get to the apex before I start tapping that space bar again, because I want to keep the fuel. And so right now we're staying pretty much at a hover, and right when we get low, I hit it again, and we're not going to be able to stay up because I hit the wall there. But even past that, there's another way you can do it, because you have the ability to use E, which we didn't actually show it, right? The knockback. So notice that it pushed them, and it also pushed me. It's got a pretty good radius to it. The thing about it is, if you fire it forwards, it's going to use its horizontal push. See, it just pushed me back there. But if you're slightly over it when you use it, you're going to get more vertical than before. Not mostly vertical because it is horizontal, but let's show here. I'm just going to point down. See, and we didn't really go anywhere because it's not going to want to push you vertically. But if we're on a wall, I'm going to use hoverjet. So let's say we're on a wall, we can E and see we pushed up and back. And then with a combination, we're up here. And so that's the basics of how you're going to get your infinite hover. And what you're going to be doing is listening very much for the beeps. That little blink, blink. Well, it went twice because I had the E on cooldown. But see that little blink there? That noise? That was what you're going to be listening for. So the advanced part of Pharah is that you have to do all of that while also tracking where your rockets are going to go. Which means predicting where the other character is going to go. And the arc of your fire, and I'm not doing a very good job, but it is a projectile, and you want to get those direct hits, but if you're not, then you need to play it like other rocket characters, and then at least just try to get your trajectories correct. And so, keeping up with the video where I said how to play a character, and looking at the end with the player cards, it's going to tell you kind of what you were doing. Then you need to notice that there is a card that says direct rocket hits. And so if you're concerned about getting SR on a character and things like that, and you're looking at your SR cards, and now that we can all be graded on the way we play by our fellow players, for better or for worse, then you need to start trying to get the hits. So, like I said, another way you can kind of look at it is most people are going to use the left shift to start, but you can kind of use the hover jets to get up. So if we didn't start with the left shift, let's just go with a basic bounce off the wall, hover, and then jump jet. See, our fuel went back up by the time we got to the apex, and we only have 3 more seconds. And we boost and let it fill up, and we're back up here. I'm gonna try to move to the edge here and see, we're hovering and we have plenty of time to get out here. And so what I'm gonna do is just kind of stay here where we can keep boosting. And this is also part of Pharah's survivability, because out here there's basically very few characters that can get to her. I mean, the hit scan characters can, but I mean, it's a long shot, right? And you have to be good, and so that's part of your survivability. The other projectile characters, you're pretty much going to have the ability to move out of a projectile, out of the range of a projectile or anything like that. Pharah versus Pharah is an advanced technique that you're going to have to deal with once you start playing with other good Pharahs. But what the most deadly thing is to a Pharah, honestly, is going to be Mercy. A good Mercy player, and we see Wolfstreak do it all the time, a good Mercy player and a counter Pharmacide, which is when you have a Mercy attached and tethered to a pharmacy, is incredibly deadly. It's one of the things you need to worry about. Most people, when they get in Pharah, they get very much concerned about trying to aim these projectiles and get the trajectory correctly. And I'm going to start showing it here. And so they're very much focused on trying to get this done. You know, the hover and timing being up in the air, because a pharmacy on a Pharah on the ground is actually a dead Pharah. You should hardly ever be on the ground. It's almost to the point of being disrespectful. Like, if I see a Pharah that's just staying on the ground, they have absolutely no fear of the other team, because 200 health is not a lot for a character to have. And so when you're up there, they start to get this tunnel vision, and they're not really worried about what's going on, because I'm, master of the sky. Now, as you can see, I'm not doing a lot of vertical movement or horizontal movement, which does make me prone to something like hit scan, a good McCree or something like that, even a Doomfist with those hand cannons. But mostly Pharahs don't worry about other Pharahs, because you have to be really good to track a character that's moving vertically and horizontally as unpredictably as a good Pharah will be. And so a good Pharah can nail other Pharahs with rockets, but the further away you are from the other Pharah, the harder it is. On the other hand, a Mercy that is tethered to a Pharah in Pharmacy has the ability to get way high up and then just use that passive with the spacebar to float over and just multi-click that left click and get a lot of headshots on Pharahs. And so that's really the thing that you have to worry about is, surprisingly, Battle Mercy, as we call her, is what you have to worry about. Alright, so now that we talked and shot rockets enough, we are now to the point where we can show the ult. Her ult is Barrage. A lot of people call it Justice Rains from Above because that's a very catchy meme that has started from this character. But it is a rapid fire linear projectile. The damage is 40 per rocket. The movement speed is none. It will make you sit wherever you are. She will just hover until she's done. The projectile speed is 28.5 meters per second. The rate of fire is 30 rockets per second. The duration is 3 seconds. So that's 90 rockets fired at 40 per rocket. So it does a lot of damage. Except when you're playing Pharah and you need those clutch kills. And then you're thinking, man, this thing does not do a lot of damage. But it does. It will not headshot because that would be ridiculous that it would headshot when the normal rocket doesn't, right? So the charge required is 1,812.5, and she builds ult at 1% every 3.625 seconds. So the thing is, she's just wherever you're at, she's just gonna fire a bunch of rockets after screaming "Justice Rains from Above." Everybody on the opposite team is gonna look for you, and you're just gonna be hovering there. But we'll take a look at it. So we'll get these guys out. Q and see we can aim it. So it seems very quick when you're shooting it. It seems like it doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does. And the dangerous part is that you're going to be sitting there. Excuse me. You're going to be sitting there like a sitting duck while you're screaming about Justice Raining from Above and firing rockets, which can be followed back in their trajectory to you. So this is something that is used very situationally, and you have to be very smart about it because if you're going to die as Pharah, it's probably going to be during one of these. And so remember, you can fire from anywhere. So it can be fired from behind a Reinhardt. It can be fired from behind an Orisa. It can be fired while inside of a Winston shield. It does not have to be, you don't have to go jump out in the middle of a group like this and just start hitting Q to start firing rockets, which I see a lot of people do, and a lot of good McCree players just completely obliterate them before they can even get all their damage out because of it. So the last part of it, of course, is, as you just saw, because the rockets have knockback and because this E has knockback, it is a good way to get environmental kills, and that's a little bonus for Pharah. So that is Pharah in a nutshell. She is very good at line breaking. So when you have places like Volskar Industries at the beginning where there's the Arcway, Eichenwald, things like that, where Symmetra and good Bastion players can kind of set up these arcs of fire to lock down a team and kind of stop you from getting around. She is one of the characters that you can quickly switch to and fly out. Now, she is a good character on most maps. I prefer not to run her on maps that have ceilings that are low. I'm trying to think of some at the moment, and also ones where points are in the middle of areas that can't really be affected, such as Lijiang Tower, where you have the center point, which is in the circle. Let's see, Hanamura is going to be another one where the first point is going to be where the bell is, where you can get rockets in there, and don't get me wrong, that is a choke point getting in, where you have the door to the upper left hand, the window to the upper left hand corner, and you have the door at the temple to get in, where Pharah can get over both the actual point if they fall back to it and defend. Pharah has a smaller window in which he can affect characters because it's enclosed. So that's going to be Pharah in a nutshell. So go out there, get your rocket kills, and blast people to bits. So if I made any mistakes or if there's any changes, give me a whisper, a tell, a PM. Find me on Twitch while I'm streaming, interrupt it, and tell me that I need to go back and change the YouTube video to be correct, and I will do so. Just make sure you're patient because I'm not the best player. I'm just trying to get there. Have fun, guys.
Respecugnize game when I get on the move. Respecugnize game on Twitch and YouTube. Respecugnize, we the cool for the new and old school. I'ma show you how to do it when I do it so smooth. Respecugnize the truth, respecugnize the new online.